Today we're looking at graphing translations of sine and cosine functions. What do we mean by translations? That means they have moved. What ways can we move?
Up and
down, left and right. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to look at 4 examples. So I have y equals 2 sine of x plus pi. Y equals 2 sine of x plus pi. So we're going to start out just like we did yesterday and find the amplitude and the period. So my amplitude is 2 and the period is 2 pi. How do you find the period?
Because it's 2 pi over b.
2 pi over b. Where do you find b at?
B is the
number in front of x. In this case, there's no number in front of x, so it's understood to be 1. So 2 pi over 1 gives me 2 pi. After you do that, now we want to talk about the shift. So what type of shift do I have on this one? Up, down, left, or right? And why? Left. Why is it a left shift?
Because it's in parentheses.
Because I'm adding inside parentheses. So I'm going left pi. I'm going left pi. Okay, after you get that information, here's what I want done on the shifts. I want you to go in and find your start and stop just like we did yesterday. So I want to know where does it start and stop before I move it. So since it's sine, where's it going to start? Origin. Now I like to put an X on there to let myself know that's not going to be what we're going to use. That's just where it is before I move it. Where does it need to stop? At 2 pi. So then I'm going to mark it. So I've got 2 pi. Half of 2 pi is pi. Half of pi is pi over 2. And then mark it. So you want to mark your start and your stop before the shift, and you want to mark your period down there. Because I want to know, that helps me figure out did I move it correctly. If I know where my start was, and then I move it to where it needs to be, I can tell whether or not I moved it correctly. And it's less confusing. You're not trying to do it all in your head. So now I need to take care of my shift, and my shift tells me I need to go left pi. So that means I need to take both of those points and move them to the left pi. So instead of starting this one at the origin, this one will now start. If I go left pi, it now starts there. The other one, if I go left pi, now starts there. And the way I have it set up, whenever you move them, you will always move on top of one of your period marks. Now, what do I mean by period marks? One of these marks down here at the bottom. The way I have the question set up, when you move them, you should always land on one of those marks. Okay? So if I notice each mark is 3 spaces, so if I go 3 spaces and 3 spaces, notice it landed on one of my marks. Okay? Now, once I have the new start and stop, I should be able to graph it. So since this is a positive sign, where does my next dot need to be? It needs to be up, so I'm going to go up 2. The next one needs to be on the middle. The next one needs to be down. So there's 5 spaces. I need 4 more. So I've got 1, 2, 3, and 4. So the next one needs to be a high, the next one needs to be a middle, and the last one needs to be a low. Make sure you put arrows on both ends for me. Say again. 1, 2. Yeah, you're right. Thank you. So what's the process? Amplitude, period, give me the shift, then what? Mark the original, start and stop, mark your period, then move your original start and stop, whatever the shift is, and then get the rest of your dots. That's all there is to it. Now, this number right here, well, we'll get to it after we do the next one, because it'll confuse you right now. Alright, I have y equals -4 cosine of 12 over 11x minus pi over 2. Y equals -4 cosine of 12 over 11x minus pi over 2. So what do I want first? Amplitude. What's my amplitude? Amplitude's always positive. Because what does amplitude tell you?
How far up or down?
How high you go or how low you go. So it's always going to be a positive number. All right, what about the period?
Maybe
11 pi over 6 is correct. Any questions on how we got 11 pi over 6?
Yes.
Okay, how did I teach you guys to do that?
I is equal to pi
2
over
pi over
2.
2 pi total, 2 pi over
2 pi times the reciprocal, so that gives me the 2 and the 12 reduced and gives me 6, so that's my 11 pi over 6. Okay, then my shift, which way am I going?
right.
I'm going to the right. You might think it's pi over 2, but it's not pi over 2. If there is a number on the x, you have to multiply whatever this number is by the reciprocal of the number in front of x. So I have to do pi over 2 times 11 over 12. So that means my shift is 11 pi over 24. All right, now what?
Starting point and stopping point.
Starting point and stopping point. So since this is a -4 cosine, my original starting point would be at 0, -4. And the stopping point needs to be at 11 pi over 6. How many spaces is 11 pi over 6? 11 spaces. So 3, 6, 9, 10, 11. So that means the original stopping point would be there. We go ahead and mark our period marks down here. So half of 11 is 5.5. Half of 5.5, 2.75. So 2 and 3 marks. Okay. So I've done all the prep work. Now what do I want to do?
Shift it.
I need to shift it. And I need to figure out how much I want to shift it. How many do I need to shift, do you think? Say it again. And how much is that? You have no idea.
It's almost 3 squares.
Now, what did I tell you about your shifts? It's going to land on your period marks. So 11 pi over 24 has to be one of those marks down there.
It's always 2.
And it is the first one. Here's a trick. This number right here is always going to be pi over 2, pi, or 3 pi over 2. If it is pi over 2, your shift will always be one of your period marks. If it's pi, your shift will always be 2 of your period marks. And if it's 3 pi over 2, your shift will always be 3 of your period marks. So that means 11 pi over 24 is this first mark right here. Now I'm going to show you something that will verify that it's 11 pi over 24. What is my final mark down here? What's the end of my period? 11 pi over 6. Okay, and then how did I get this number? Or how did I get this mark? What did I do? Divided it by 2. What happens when I divide 11 pi over 6 by 2? I get 11 pi over 12. And then what did I do to get this mark? I divided that by 2. If I divide that by 2, I get 11 pi over 24. So that verifies that that first one is the mark we want. Okay? But I want you to tell me what it is, and then you can use this to help you move. Okay? So I need to move to the right 1 mark. This tells me I need to move 1 mark. So this right here needs to move to this spot, which is right here, and this one needs to move. We said, how much was it between each period mark? 2.75. So that means that one needs to move to there. Once I know where my start and finish are, then all I have to do is use the pattern. So what does my next dot need to be? Needs to be a high, low, or middle. Which one? It's got to be a middle. Why does it have to be a middle? Because I started at a low. If I started at a low or a high, the next one has to be the middle. Then the next one needs to be a high. And the next one needs to be a middle. And then I've already got the low over there. Okay, and let's go 2 3/4 to the right to get another one to the right. So there is 1, 2 3/4 puts me there, and that's going to be the middle. And let's go the other direction. So I've got to have a middle. How many do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I need 2 more. So 2 3/4 is there, and another 2 3/4. 1, 2 3/4 puts me there. So I need a high, and I need a middle. There it is. Bless you. So, get your amplitude period, get your shift, figure out where you would start before you move, mark your period, figure out how many period marks you need to move in which direction, move your start and stop, and then sketch your graph. Next one. Oh, that's 3x, not 2x. All right, y equals -3 plus cosine of 3x. Y equals -3 plus cosine of 3x. All right, amplitude.
3, 1.
1. Why is it 1? There's not a number directly in front of cosine. If there's not a number directly in front of cosine, it's understood to be 1. What about my period? 2 pi over 3. It's 2 pi over b. B is the number in front of x. That number is 3, so 2 pi over 3. What about my shift? Down 3. How'd you know that, Natasha? -3, and the -3 is not located where? In the parentheses. So if it's not located in the parentheses, that tells me it's a vertical shift. Okay, what do I want to do next? Mark my start and my stop. So since it's cosine, where's this start? At 1, at the amplitude. I need to go 2 pi over 3. How many spaces is 2 pi over 3? 4 spaces. So that would be where the stop is at. Mark my period down here, or my period marks. Now, here's what I want you to do on a vertical shift. If there is a vertical shift, I want you to draw a new x-axis. So where does my new x-axis need to be? -3, because I'm moving down 3. Whatever your vertical shift is, that's where you want your new x-axis to be. Why do you think I want to draw that? How is that going to be helpful? Right, that has to be, that tells me where the middle of my graph needs to be. The vertical middle of my graph needs to be there. So that means from there, I'm going to go up 1 and down 1 from that spot. So I've got my start and my stop, I've got my period marks, and I have my new x-axis. So now what do I need to take care of? I need to take care of moving my original start and stop. What do I have to do with my original start and stops? Move them down 3. So take this and move it down 3, puts it here. Take that one and move it down 3, puts it there. And now we should be able to find the rest of my marks. So where does my next mark need to be? It needs to be a middle. The next one needs to be a low, and then I need a middle. Okay, and let's continue on. I've got 5 marks, I want 4 more. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So then I need a middle, and a low, I need a middle, and I need a high. Put arrows on each end. So we found the amplitude, we found the period, we found the shift. We marked our original start and stop. Since it had a vertical shift, we put a new x-axis. Then I moved my original start and stop, whatever my shift was, and then I got the rest of my dots, and then drew my graph. One more. All right, y equals 1 plus 2 sine of 6 over 7 x minus pi over 2. Y equals 1 plus 2 sine of 6 over 7 x minus pi over 2. So what is my amplitude?
2.
My amplitude is 2. Period? 7 pi over 3. Any questions on where the 7 pi over 3 came from? All right, shifts. Up 1.
Pi over 2.
And then we need to go right. How much?
Pi over 2.
What, don't you multiply?
7 pi over
Over 6.
12. 7 pi over 12. Where did I get 7 pi over 12 from? I multiplied by the reciprocal of that. So this is 7 over 6. 7 over 6 times 7, or pi over 2 gives me 7 pi over 12. All right, now what do I want to do? Original start and stop. So the original start is at 0. The original stop is at 7 pi over 3. How many spaces is 7 pi over 3? 14. So 3, 6, 9, 12, 14 is going to be right there. Half of 14 is 7. Half of 7 is 3.5.
Do you care about the negative?
The negative in front, what does the negative in front of pi over 2 tell me? It tells me whether or not I'm going to the right or to the left. If it's negative, that tells me right.
Oh,
That's
obviously.
It tells me left.
Sorry.
All right, so I've got my original start and stop. I have my period marks done. What do I want to do next? A new x-axis. If you've got a vertical shift, make sure you put a new x-axis. So my new x-axis is where? 1. So give me a new x-axis. And now we're ready to shift it. So I know I got to go up 1. How much do I need to move to the right? But how many marks is that?
That's
3.5 boxes. It is 1 period mark. So that means I need to move 1 period mark to the right and go up 1. So 1 period mark to the right and up 1 puts my start there. On the other one, I need to go, let's mark it 1, 2, 3.5. I need to go over 1 period mark and up 1. So there are my new start and stops. Once I have my new start and stop, then it should be easy to get the rest of it. Yes, Rich.
How did you get that it was 1 period mark?
How did I get to there was 1 period mark? Anybody?
So it says,
That's pi over 2.
Oh,
If it's pi over 2, that tells me 1 mark. If it's pi, that tells me 2. If it's 3 pi over 2, that tells me 3. So, what does my next one need to be? A high, low, or a middle?
hi.
Needs to be a high, and it's going up 2. So it needs to be there. The next one needs to be a middle. The next one needs to be a low. So there's 5. Let's go to the left. So they are 3.5 apart. So let's see how many marks we can get. There's 1, and there's 1. So I can do 3 more spots. So the next one needs to be a low. Then I need a middle, and then I need a high. There it is. So when I'm graphing sine and cosine when they have translations, first thing I want to do is
And this one here.
find the amplitude period and my shift. Then what do I want to do? Mark the original start and stop and mark my period marks down there at the bottom. If it has a vertical shift, I then want to do a new x-axis, and then after I do my new x-axis, I'm going to move the original start and stop, whatever my shift tells me to do. Once I have them moved, then all I have to do is follow the pattern of sine or cosine.